I am back. I am late. I know that. I also know that I didn't stream yesterday, even though I kind of wanted to, because I had a lot of other stuff to do. Um, let's now get back into Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. Oh, right. I've been playing some Pokemon Mystery Dungeon off stream, no, a ROM hack, not this game. And I used the spacebar pretty heavily for that one because it's just my own gameplay experience. I don't need to worry about the experience of a spectator from the outside. But I gotta remember, no use of the spacebar or save states in this one. Unknown to, I didn't know that was a thing. No, I don't think I can do that. Let's continue. Got a lot of items. I figured out, through playing off stream, I actually figured out a pretty good mnemonic device to determine how much food to bring with me into any given dungeon. If I assume I'm like exploring the whole floor, I think what I want to do is have one apple per like 5 to 7 floors, with the assumption that I might find some more food in the dungeon itself. But you know. So if a dungeon has 15 floors, I'd take 2 or maybe 3 apples. Jump Love. The flashback. There we go. I was also planning to today write a blog post on Mastodon. I write blog posts about the books that I read. I finished reading um, I finished reading the book The Art of the Andes, which has got it has a thing that's actually really funny. It's really similar to uh, um, what I was talking about in that one video on my channel with the Herms. Hello, Gotron. Welcome back. Where are we going? This is Big Canyon Place. I watched the last live stream yesterday, Stormtrooper helmet. Yeah, that was fun. It was kind of challenging though. It's kind of hard to keep that thing on my head. Walking in the mall? Ah, I see. What I wanted to share was I finished reading the thing that I was reading, which is this textbook, academic textbook called Art of the Andes. It was something that I had to read for my one of my college classes back in the day. This would be, God, 5 or 6 years ago now. About, well, art in pre-contact South America, basically. Let's put that back as well. There we go. And I'm not an art history person necessarily, but it was interesting to me. I'm interested in history, I'm interested in archaeology and politics and whatever. So I was kind of reading it with that lens. I was reading it with that in mind, for basically studying the politics or refreshing myself on the politics of these ancient Native American societies through the lens of looking at the art that they made. These little, like, well, it would be mostly like household ceramics and clothes, because that's the kind of stuff that survived. And then, of course, there's because it's also an archaeological textbook. There's some stuff about the buildings as well. Take this. Wait, no, don't take that ginseng. That ginseng. So many art purges in history? Yeah. But I found it quite informative. And just like, whoa, pretty, you know, designs and stuff. Like I said, I'm not that much of an art history person. But there were a couple strange things. First I want to talk about the funny shit, but then I'll get to the strange things. Towards the end of the book, there is a bit that is eerily reminiscent of the Herms. If you guys remember what the Herms are from the one video, if not, then that's okay. The Herms were these statues of Hermes that were to offer protection to travelers. And these statues would be well endowed. They'd have an erect cock and balls. And for good luck on your travels, you would go and lube up the cock and balls with some olive oil. That is real. You can look on Wikipedia. It'll say the same fucking thing that I'm telling you. You know. I can't actually do that. There we go. There was a, if you can believe it, there was a bit that reminded me of that. Let me go get the book. So, think I'm an old man with Alzheimer's? That's fine. Look, it's YouTube content. It's, you know, not something that you should be highly prioritizing in your memory. Don't take that as an indication of how well you can remember things. I certainly don't. The only reason I remember the videos I make is because I made them. you know? It's kind of a joke. I gotcha. Here it is. Okay. So this is, I think this chapter, it's talking about a site, an archaeological site that's in what's now Ecuador. The Incan Empire was actually a fairly recent, kind of like the Aztecs, the Inca Empire was fairly recent as far as pre-contact history in the Americas goes. But they did have a uniquely large influence. The Inca state was the largest in terms of the area where their influence was felt, which is a subject of discussion that I'll get into later with what I think are some issues in this book. But let's see. They start with, let's see, some Inca control is clearly seen at the ruined administrative center of Cochabamba in modern day what's now Ecuador. Let's see here. Where is the where's the thing that they were talking about here? Cylindrical tombs. Yeah, okay, wait. Yeah, here we go. This is what I was thinking of. Round burial structures at the site of Los Pinchudos retain much of their original yellow, white, and red paint. And rare wooden sculptures of ithyphallic males hang from the eaves. And then they have a picture of it on the next page. You can see there's the little figures of men up there, and this is the temple that they talk about. So then I was like, okay, I know what phallic means. What is ithyphallic? I looked it up. It means they are fully erect. They drew, okay. I couldn't understand that sentence. Yeah, there's this little temple, and around the temple there are some wooden statues of men that are fully, like, hard, erect cock and balls. And these are, you can see here, you might be able to see it. This is built kind of like into a hillside. The Incas did this pretty frequently. They would build, I think, or not just the Incas as well. A lot of South American societies would do this, where they kind of built buildings into the existing landscape You can kind of see over to the side here, there's like a rock face that this kind of juts out of. So you'd be coming from this way, right? Off to the left, as you're seeing here. And these are the statues. So you're walking up to this temple, and you can tell that it's the Holy Temple because you're immediately greeted by these wooden statues of guys that have raging hard-ons. Religion is not beating the psychosexual repression allegations. Like, they are never beating those allegations, man. But, like, it's... Despite how dry this textbook is, it is a textbook, like a proper textbook. I actually audibly laughed when I read that part and when I found out what the definition was, and then, like, looked at the picture again, I was like, oh my god. That is so fucking funny. But yeah, so you get, like... I feel like you could probably capture a lot of, like, the bedrock of... There's a reason why those groups are sus. Buddy, it's not just them. Every single religion has has baked into it extreme psychosexual repression and insecurity. And you know what's the funny thing? We can recognize that. This is, I guess, where I'll move on to the issues of the book. Some of the issues that I have. The first one not being with the book itself, but rather with our own in-group, out-group bias. This is actually a strong suit of the book that doesn't get applied anywhere else. We know inherently that religion is sus. We just, for whatever reason, we make an exception for our religion. I meant all religions. Yeah, well, you know, that's the correct and principled stance to take, right? And you see in archaeology, you actually see that reflected in descriptions and accounts of various groups of people that academics talk about. There's a natural sort of incredulity that the belief in the supernatural actually does anything aside from justify hierarchy and, you know, keep society in a pretty repressed and backward state, right? Like the psychosexual undertones of religion are only undertones when you're talking about your own religion. With other religions, especially religions from societies long past, because they are uniquely foreign, they just become overtones, regular tones, so that, like, they are plainly visible. Statues of people with erect cock and balls, like, you can't tell me that there's no psychosexual element to religion there when the temple is displaying to you, behold, erect penis. You know? All religion is like this. The difference is we try to make excuses for our own, and when I say we, I mean, like, Christians will make excuses for Christianity supposedly not being like that. Muslims will do that for Islam. Jews will do this for Judaism. Hindus will do it for Hinduism, etc., etc., etc. Just to name some of the, you know, ones that you hear about most frequently. Buddhists and Buddhism. And when religious rites are talked about in these books and stuff like that, it's very plain to see that, like, even just an objective description, like as objective as you could make it, an objective description of these religious rites that sometimes get analyzed in books like this, it's very plain to see that, like, the religious element of them, if not in like name, certainly in function, is being invoked from a self-interested and cynical perspective to serve the you know, whichever class is the ruling class and stuff like that. You know, like, it's very evident that a secular authoritarian purpose is being served first and foremost by these religious rites. And then the spiritual function of them is kind of like, I'm not going to say secondary, because I think the spiritualism and the irrationalism actually serves the modes of hierarchy and is therefore, like, useful in the first order of things. But, like, you know, it's less about social connection and more about parasocial control. Remember when, you know, when I was talking about this with hierarchy? Does Pokemon in universe have a religion? They allude to it when they introduce some of the legendary Pokemon. It's like, you know, I don't know, I guess they like worship the legendaries or something, but I don't think that Pokemon really has a religion like that. If it does, it would probably be just like Japanese Shinto Buddhism. That's the only thing I could think of. There we go. Try to keep at least 1,000 in the bank. And then I think I just gotta go now. Didn't know if it went any deeper. Yeah, no, I don't think it goes any deeper than that. In fact, there was actually there was a Pokemon episode that got banned for featuring a cross. It's very like religiously non-specific. You know, if it has any religious themes at all, they will be very hidden and sort of under the surface as a product of like some sort of cultural bias. I think there was an episode in the like first season or a couple seasons of the anime where somebody pulled out a cross or something because they were spooked. But like they couldn't show that because of censorship laws in Japan, I believe. It was like, oh, we're not going to show like religious shit in kids media. So they didn't air that episode. Or at the very least they changed it. I am going to save the game. Remember the gun episode? Yeah, they banned that one too. Kind of fucked up. It's like they just point a gun in Ash's face. It's like, bro, calm down. That's crazy. No, wait. It's a good thing I saved there. I wanted to get another team member on my team. I will continue. Let's go get Magnemite. Or Magnetar, I guess. That's what I named him. Yeah. Pichu used thunder on that gun? But did that really happen? I haven't seen the episode. I just know of its existence and the infamous screenshot where Ash gets a fucking 38 caliber revolver shoved in his face. It's just a bit. Okay, I got you. Silent Chasm. So that was one. Getting back to that book, I intend to incorporate some of this into like a review of the book that I'll write, or like a recap that I'll write on Mastodon. The bit about religion was one issue that I view to be metatextual. It's an issue of like the society in which the book was produced rather than the book itself. In fact, it's something that I distinctly believe the book does correctly, which is be naturally incredulous of religious structures of power, especially when you're studying societies over such long periods of time. Shit, the timeline of this book starts like 8,000 or 9,000 years ago. Like, this shit goes deep. This shit runs deep. All the way back to, like, when these areas hadn't been permanently settled yet. Through, like, the first evidence of permanent settlement, you know, up to the point where, like, trade started to develop and like, you know, all the architecture changing over time and shit like that. The origin myth being woven in with real history in a way that makes them difficult to disentangle. But a real issue with the book itself. Number one, not very well written, right? This is a textbook. It's going to be pretty dry. In fact, one of the issues I take with it I showed you that there are pictures, the picture of the temple, for example. You may notice here's a page with a couple pictures. These pictures are figures because it's a textbook. These are figures. This happens to be number 138. The text is probably too small for you to see, but each of these pictures has a corresponding number and a little description, right? An issue with this book is that in order for you to understand just the text, see, like this is a paragraph, no pictures, just text. In order for you to understand the text and the paragraphs that you're reading, you actually have to go back to various different figures. For example, this is image number 138. So we're in the 100s here. And then on the next page, there's this paragraph starting the next chapter. And there are little numbers here indicating other figures. 142 to 44, 158 to 59, 1, and 161. Those are the figures that you have to look at in order to understand what this paragraph is talking about. So I'm on page 163. I'd have to go about 7 pages forward, and then fucking how many pages? 20 pages forward, right? Then I'd have to go all the way to the fucking beginning of the book. Figure number 1? What even is that? And then I have to go even further forward, right? Just to understand one paragraph on one page. It's hostile to you as the reader, especially God, it's no wonder I didn't remember much. Imagine you're a college student trying to read this book in a limited period of time, right? I guess that's kind of to be expected with something that was produced out of academia, especially in the 2010s. I think this has a publishing date of 2012 or something. This is the 3rd edition. Yeah, copyright 1995, 2002, and 2012. 2nd edition 2002, 3rd edition 2012, reprinted 2016. So this is something that was written over the course of the late 90s to the 2000s to the 2010s. So it's not going to be terribly readable, which is unfortunate. I don't expect necessarily, I don't expect the way I used to. I don't expect all academic literature to be readable to the layman, right? The average person is fucking illiterate, but it should be you should take some care when writing a textbook or an academic piece so that it has some kind of direction and flow that you can follow, right? It the pacing is just all over the place with these random numbers. Besides various paragraphs, you can see it's not just that one page. It's all over the place. There's 3 on this page. There's there's 2 on this page. There's 1 on this page. There's 2 on this page. Right? You're constantly having to stop in the middle of a paragraph and go back or forward and look at an image just to understand that paragraph. It took me way longer than I think it should have to read this book, in part because of that. You know? Anyways, here we are in Silent Chasm. That's just one issue. I wonder if they do that on purpose. Part of me believes, yes, they do. In fact, I know that there is some kind of bias in academia. This could be the I hate ivory tower types part of me speaking, but I do know some academic types that are very much high on their own supply. They think they're all that in a bag of chips. I had one professor who was like this, and I never let him hear the end of it. He would always every other class, he'd be like, oh yeah, and this and this book are great books, you should read them. And I know that it's just gonna be basically the equivalent of academic slop, you know? Especially in anthropology, you get some of that sometimes. But I think more so it's just it's not a requirement that you be good at writing to have a career where you spend your time writing. Do you know what I mean? If you're a novelist, it is part of the job description that you have to be good at writing. If you're writing academic pieces, being good at writing is not part of the job description. And I think that's just why, at the core of it, that's why this kind of stuff happens. They don't need to be good at writing, so a lot of them aren't, you know? Also, I'm aware I might be being a little bit loud right now. I'm trying to work a little bit on voice training, trying to normalize my voice to like a little bit higher of a pitch than I usually do. So no, it's not usually an on-purpose thing. It is sometimes, but not always. The other issue I have, I guess, is just that it's like being a textbook, it's pretty dry. You know, it's already dry, which to me isn't that big of a problem, but you know, it's like it's inconsistently. Oh right, that isn't a thing in this game. The attack turn thing. It's dry in a way that I find very inconsistent. I think the book mistakes being dry for being objective, or for being analytical about things, right? There's a surprising amount of bias in the book itself. That, like, for how much I commend the book on its ability to take a critical view of religion when it's not, you know, the in-group religion, it's surprisingly Noble Savage-esque, if that makes sense. Like, they do some of that. In fact, there's one of the things where, like, it's almost like there were some points where I almost did the meme of, like, dang, wokeness has gone too far. Because naturally, when you deal with the religious sections, you're going to be dealing with hallucinogens, right? Drugs. They did drugs. In fact, it's depicted frequently in the artworks. What is it called? The five-pointed, like, cactus flower or something like that. It is a hallucinogen that priests would often take in order to enter a state of trance. And they love that shit. But for whatever reason, to the detriment of the book's own readability, they insisted on not referring to these as hallucinogens, because they didn't want to, like, invalidate that they were actually seeing things. Like, no, I believe that people are actually seeing some shit when they're on a hallucinogen. The difference is it's not actually there. You're seeing something for real, but it's not in front of you for real. You know, if you reached out, you wouldn't touch it because there's nothing there. But I do believe that, like, I don't know, if you do acid or some shit, you would be seeing something. They use the term entheogen to like rationalize and intellectualize their decision to, like, I don't know, not call a spade, if that makes sense, you know? Like, and they did it unironically. It was a much more reactionary interpretation of what a hallucinogen is, because baked into the use of the term entheogen instead of hallucinogen, and they say this outright, is that hallucinogens are morally bad. Legitimately, that, like, there was some. It was the classic, like, liberal response to the war on drugs type of shit, where it's like, oh, well, drugs are degenerate, you know, so we just don't want to refer to these as though they're drugs, but they are. The difference is, like, it's like they've accepted some premises that are really weird, and I think actually kind of, like, harm the I don't know, it doesn't speak too well to the legitimacy of the work, I think. Please kill that fool. Thank you. That's another issue. It's like a virtue signal. Nice going, Weedle. Teaching a child to be very violent. I love violence. Ow. Alright, cool. Wait, I'm not facing the right way. Oh, you just didn't do anything? Thank you, Mudkip. Very cool. Alright. Can you not... Magnetar, please? Thank you. Stability has been beaten to me deeper than I think. Stability? Gonna do it again. One more for the fans. That's the AI in this game. Civility. Ah, I see. Please use a move. Bro, what is wrong with you? With these teammates? I'm trying to conserve my like move usages. I'm trying to conserve PP over here, and they're like, let me just not use any of my moves so that you only get half experience. Fucking, I'm not dealing with this. Thank you. Can't ever picture myself being rude in most circumstances. I almost don't even count, like, basic manners as part of civility. Like, the term civility to me exclusively represents, like, a degenerative social force. Where you have to be polite no matter the circumstance. Like, it almost defies the principle of understanding that people are people. Mudkip. Oh my god. I'm getting frustrated. I actually don't know how many floors this dungeon has. Yeah, I mean, I may be engaging in, like, reductio ad absurdum or something like that. But, you know, the people who freak out over civility only ever freak out when I'm calling Nazis retards, and not when, like, they call trans people degenerate or something like that. Or if they do that, they don't freak out for them thinking that of trans people, they freak out for them vocalizing it in that way. Don't you know you're supposed to be you're supposed to serve Nazism with a smile. To me, that's what civility is. It is the normalization of the worst possible ideologies, so long as it's served with a smile. So, you know, I don't care for it. 10 times out of 10, I would rather hang out with, like, a, a guy, like, a person who cares, but is, like, pretty rude sometimes, but is otherwise, like, like, a good person, rather than a, like, actual piece of shit who just knows how to be civil. Like, 10 times out of 10, you know? I don't know. I could be just going on a rant because not a fan of civility. I was thinking more of being nice to an insane degree. I think that that might also, like, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Where it's like, being nice is the priority above all else. Which would then serve to, like, normalize the, like, if you're a shit-ass person and, like, the priority is just being nice over all else, then the person who's a shit-ass human being doesn't face any accountability, and also they can get away with some shit if they're just nice and they serve it up with a smile, you know? And of course, serve it up with a smile being a turn of phrase, being like you maintain a polite tone throughout all of it. We. So that's one issue of the book. To tie it back, that's something that I think that the book does, like, egregiously wrong. Is that it's like in trying to stress that, like, no, like, there's nothing inherently worse about this society or this group of people, it actually just reinforces how much baked-in chauvinism there is against other cultures and societies. In it just in the kind of reverse direction that, like, you know, like with the example about hallucinogens being them, like, relabeling them as entheogens, it's like you can just call them hallucinogens, and that's not a reflection on that culture or society, because every culture, every society throughout history has used hallucinogens, either recreationally or for, like, I don't know, religious purposes. Like, it's okay. The next issue is another sort of modern bias, a much more, like, direct modernity bias. Talk about the fun stuff. Ever tried? What? I'm still talking about. I was just wrapping up the part about Las Drogas, and how, like, very frequently in pre-contact Mesoamerica and South America, the priestly class would use them, but there's this weird obsession with labeling them as entheogens rather than hallucinogens, because it's like, oh, well, hallucinogens are stinky and morally degenerate, which is a very Western chauvinistic assumption that, like, you need to, like, it's very war on drugs coded is what I'm saying, which is dumb. But then the other issue, like, was this modernity bias where there was a distinct tendency to project the authority of the state backwards in time, right? Certainly the history of human society is the rise and fall of various, you know, states, but I think we forget, certainly academics, you know, sometimes will forget, I guess, like, especially if you're losing the forest for the trees sometimes, or if you're getting really into the thick of it, that the state did not always look the way it does today. The state, in fact, was very, very small until the 20th century. uh, you know, and so a lot of things were kind of ascribed to the state as a concept in this book that I don't think were really warranted. You know, it's almost like they were trying to project the size of the state back in time where it didn't exist. And a lot of the things they talk about as being like, oh, the influence of some state or another, I don't think it's necessary for the state to be that big in order for artistic trends, influences, and styles to permeate the way that they did. For example, there were like certain different artistic styles that became popular with around the time that the Inca's predecessors came around. The Wari and the Tiwanaku, right? These were, I think, ethnic groups that had like disproportionate influence. And of course, the presence of human society can only really be measured in terms of cities. States very rarely had a presence outside of their own city. And to the extent that they did, it was like a small administrative or commercial compound where basically their merchants and guards could set up shop, right? That's the extent to which the state existed. And I think it's just as easy and likely, in fact, more likely to explain artistic styles proliferating with, like... I hate this game. It's like just as easy to explain all that proliferating with just the sort of ordinary like contact and that like people of different towns and cities would have. Like, imagine... Yeah, it is a blatant rewriting of history in a counter-historical way to fit a narrative with which we're familiar. Imagine if the evolution and spread of blues music in America was ascribed to the state. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. But if there's archaeological evidence left behind, you could draw an analogy between the lens of analysis that archaeologists would use to ascribe artistic development to the state in pre-contact Meso and South America, and somebody drawing the same line here with something like blues music or artistic movements from the 19th and 20th centuries in America. Even though the state was 1 or 2 orders of magnitude larger at the time that blues music was a thing, at the time that jazz was a thing, you know, all these different forms of art, or even like styles of painting in America, you would have to be insane to credit that to the state. You know? I'm skipping this. All right. Let's get it again. I think this is going to have basically the same layout as the last time I was here, so... I forgot that wasn't a thing again. So that's another problem I have with that book. And that's not uniquely a problem with that book either. I remember many an academic text does this, both today and also throughout college. I remember that sticking with me, the degree to which the state was discussed, and certainly the state is a valid topic of discussion to be focused on all throughout college, especially if the objective is to have a new generation of young people who are well educated in the social sciences. You have to understand the role of the state. But I would argue it's like it serves a critical misunderstanding to highlight and credit the state in the way that some of these texts do, in a very erroneous manner. Like the oh yeah, you know, like even if they're being relatively critical of the state and how the state uses coercion, power, and like force to propagate its extent and its influence, they still overestimate the size of the state. You know, like the state as an administrative entity, like is concerned first and foremost with the efficiency of operation. It doesn't want to like do stuff that's really inefficient to sort of like propagate its own authority or to ensure that its own survival, right? So like the states often just get away with the illusion that they're a lot bigger than they are, particularly in history. Sounds like ridiculous at this point. I think autocorrect is kind of screwing you there. I don't quite understand what you mean. That does 4 damage per thing in this game. That is brutal. All right, I'm going to the next floor. Jesus. Basically, what I'm trying to say is if you're reading something about history, whether it's art history or archaeology, or whatever else, or just like world history, and there's like a series of interesting historical, sounds like a religion at this point. Yeah, I mean, statism is a kind of religion. There is a good reason that the rise of the state and the rise of religious institutions happened at exactly the same time. Because religious institutions were the state, and the state is a religious institution of hierarchy and parasocial faith that you put in certain people that have a like ethereal justification for having more power than like any one person should have, right? And it's just accepted unquestioningly, with the threat of force should you question it, you know? Like, truly, we haven't deviated that far from the divine right of kings. But basically, anytime you see a set of historical developments, or artistic developments in history, whatever the case may be, right? If it is not something that is directly attributable to the state, if it's not something that the state would have had to do, then do not attribute it to the state. Look for other things that are probably responsible for it, because most likely those other things would be the things responsible. For example, with artistic development, it's much easier. Or actually not easier. It's much more likely to explain evolving artistic styles that are different from one another, with several cities and units of human society being out of contact, and then the merging and meshing of those artistic styles being an indication of social contact between two groups, particularly with trade networks and stuff like that. None of the artistic development throughout history is like the brainchild of the state, and you can tell when art is the brainchild of the state, you can tell, you know? And the reason you can tell, at least to me, is that it's kind of artistically uninteresting. You know? It's like there are a couple instances in this book where straight up there's art that I would believe like, okay, yes, this is art probably commissioned by or done by the state, and the core themes that the state that serve the state well, you know, that the state would benefit from, are fucking boring. It's always like every single time the like religious or state adjacent themes are fucking boring. It's all just the aggrandization of authority. That's it. That is the only thing that the state and religious institutions as institutions care about. So that's the only piece of them that is ever reflected in artwork. And if they are ever producing artwork, that is all the artwork will have. We know this from the Soviet realist and Aryan Volk art of like the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany respectively. It's fucking boring. It's just the portrait of dear leader. No, the interesting things come from where the artist themselves injects their own upbringing, culture, and background into the art when it is often, sometimes commissioned by the state. They put a bit of themselves into the art, and that's where the interesting stuff comes from. Those are the real artistic developments: the different colors, the geometric shapes, the kind of animals they choose to include as part of the artwork. That's one thing that varied from place to place in the Andes, where like at various different elevations you would find different animals. So at the art, like in the artwork of towns and cities at those various altitudes, you would find animals that were like befitting of the culture. Sometimes, in fact, this is one of the most interesting correlations. Most frequently, you would find art depicting animals that didn't live in a certain area. For example, if you were in the layer of the mountains where a lot of llamas live, you would find art depicting a lot of animals that aren't llamas, because those animals are seen as exotic and interesting and different. And none of that is what the state is responsible for. Yanma? We'll name you Yusuf. That makes sense. Yeah. In fact, one interesting thing, one thing that was almost universally depicted, or two animals that were almost universally depicted in art in the ancient Andes were jaguars and spiders, both of which are animals not commonly found in the Andes, in the Andean mountains. They are found in the Amazon rainforest, in the jungle just to the east, because that was seen as like a very inaccessible place. A very arid mountain environment that's cold a decent chunk of the year, that's like doesn't get that much water or rainfall. It's so drastically different from the jungle that there would be drastically different floral and fauna like profiles. So common to all of the Andean mountains is, well, a mountainous environment and not a jungle environment. Oh my fucking god. I think I just have to eat that. I can't restart again. So all of these areas depict jaguars and spiders in their artwork, particularly in what we would call the Nazca lines. It wasn't just the Nazca that drew these lines, but these giant fucking like drawings the size of football fields of spiders and jaguars and like eagles and stuff. Because those were animals that weren't commonly found in the mountains. Sixth floor. So yeah, that's I think those are my thoughts on the book. Big takeaways, stuff like that. Rock. Great, thank you, Mudkip. Dude, my team is useless. And this Poliwag is a genius? Thank you, Yanma, at the very fucking least. Get out of here. Yanma trying to make up for that, internet doesn't see the person in a week. I think he's dead. Well, with Trump, it is very much that, because, like, Trump has seldom spent a day of his life, ever since 2015, off camera. For him to just all of a sudden be completely missing in action for a week. Remember, he's the president, and he's like a reality TV kind of guy. It is extremely unusual for him to be invisible for that long. Seems like a terminally online thing. It is not, buddy. Every single person in America was speculating. The right-wing pundits were, like, holding their tongue. It was not just online. I need an apple. There we go. Dude, this dungeon is putting a fucking dent in my resources. And also, it's not like Trump emerged unscathed either. He had, like, a decent-sized stroke. You know? So he's clearly, like, not in very good health. He's getting pretty close to the end of his lifespan. Yeah, I think that's like the core of what everybody was speculating about mostly, you know, is that he's just not looking great. In fact, it's like even the Republican Party knows that it's like almost time for him to die. Like, it's almost his time to go, because they're like trying to prepare J.D. Vance to be the president. Now, J.D. Vance has no shot at being a competent president for the far right because he's like Mr. Smart Guy. And I don't believe that he's completely an idiot. Like, as far as the far right goes, he's like about as well educated as they come. But that's actually, like, doesn't help when you're trying to be the head of a fascist movement. Also, Jesus fucking Christ, hit this fool. All right, thank you. You know, don't like taking part in rumors. I didn't engage in, like, oh, he's dead. See, the rumor would be Trump is dead. That would be a rumor. No one told him it'd be a game of popularity. Yeah, well, you know, the liberals certainly haven't taken that lesson to heart. And it, like, the Republicans, believe it or not, kind of haven't either. Because Trump is their only muse. You know? But like I was saying, look, the rumor would be, oh my god, Trump is dead. That's a rumor. It is a conclusion based on unsubstantiated speculation. The Trump has been missing in action for a week. This is highly fucking unusual. Something wacky, like some shit must have happened. That is not a rumor. Because you're only operating off of what you can say for sure with 100% certainty. Trump was missing in action for the better part of a week. That is extremely unusual for Donald Trump. Therefore, the only reasonable conclusion is that for some reason he can't be in front of the camera. Something must have happened to force him into an environment where he is not in front of a camera. And, you know, given that Donald Trump is in relatively poor health, it is most likely that it's some sort of health episode. Hell, even when Trump is doing some, like, extremely, like, sensitive weirdo shit, like when he's golfing or whatever Trump is doing, there are cameras there unless he's, like, in the hospital. That's, like, the only circumstance where Trump wouldn't have the cameras on him. So what I'm trying to say is, no, it wasn't a rumor. It was only a rumor if you jumped to a conclusion that wasn't directly indicated by the evidence at hand. Right? Like, it would be a rumor, it would not just be a rumor, but a conspiracy to go the other direction and say, well, everything's fine, he's just not on camera this week, smiley face. You know? It wouldn't have the mimetic power of the rumors that would say that, like, oh my god, Donald Trump is dead, because that resonates with more people, but it would nonetheless be a rumor. Anyway. How many floors? I forget how many floors are in this dungeon. I don't think it's that much longer. I think it's like 13 or 14 floors, maybe. Get out of here, Svenrak. I'm having to tread pretty carefully. Okay. You are going to come to me. And then I'm going to do this. Okay. Not making the same mistake I did last time. Just like you are going to... Yes, okay, thank you. Water gun. Okay. I don't think there's any more rooms, so going on to the next floor. Oh. This is it. Oh shit. Cool foot. Scale Mount Thunder. What, you just fucking nabbed him? That's fucked up. Dude, I can't go to Mount Thunder. Zapdos gonna fuck me up. I'm only level 16 right now. No, Mudkip, you are water type. Mudkip, you are water type. Zapdos is electric type and flying type, and I'm grass type. Both of us are getting our asses handed to us on a platter if we try to scale Mount Thunder. Ow, 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 my stomach. That's the funny bit. Back from purchasing donuts? Ah. Dude, your partner in this game is such a clown. It's like, yeah, we're level fucking 15 on average. Let's go take on Zapdos at the top of Mount Thunder, even though he has an advantageous type matchup on both of us. Just give me just put the jobs from the job bulletin board in the bag. All right, I've saved the game, so I'm going to save state as well. Ugh. No one in your party has evolved once. Yeah, that's not really how evolutions work in this game. But yes, we are also all unevolved Pokemon, which in the main series would matter a fucking lot. But in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the evolution and stat system is very different. I'm not going to Mount Thunder right now. How your squad would get destroyed so easily? Yeah, I know. Really? Nothing in the mail? That's crazy. Alright, I'm going to actually do some jobs on the job list. I'm gonna... Probably the rest of the stream I'm gonna chill. Genuinely, I don't think it's a good idea to try scaling Mount Thunder if I'm, like, any less than level 20 something. In fact, let me look up right now. Mount Thunder. How, less Mystery Dungeon DX. Okay, so there's Mount Thunder, which is 10 floors, and then Mount Thunder Peak, which is 3 floors. And the Pokemon there range from level 8 to 12, with Zapdos being level 25. Okay. So I guess it is designed in a way to make it, like, possible for you to do right away. But I'm not going to do that. I am going to probably... Where do I want to go? I have 50 points. It doesn't tell me how many points I need to the next rank. So for now, I guess I will have a look at the bulletin board. Tiny Woods and Silent Chasm. I think I'm about done with Tiny Woods. I may do Thunder... Well, no, I'm gonna start doing... I'm gonna do these Mount Steel missions. Because I have a bunch of them and they're really low rank. I just kind of want to clear them off of my list. Is every character in that universe a vegetarian? To my knowledge, yes. I don't think there's any, like, meat-based food in this world. Put that stuff back. Put this stuff back. Yes. I may need to take some stuff out of storage. Yeah, I'll take one Reviver Seed out of storage. Oh, I also will need a... couple of Max Elixirs. Beast Stars? Can I buy some stuff? Oh yeah, this was the game where I said, like, I'm gonna probably have to buy supplies if I can get my hands on them. Which I will do. Buy a max elixir and a big apple. You don't know the show, then just forget about it? Okay, because I don't know the show. Big apple. Put that away. And I'll put one of these away. Oop. How much money do I have? 586. How much is in the bank? 1157. I'll just put the rest of the 586 in the bank. Alright, let's go. I'm going to save the game, and then I'll go off to Mount Steel. Actually, I think I have some items as well that I can sell for some money. Let's take some things out of storage. I'm going to hang on to some of these orbs. Well, the Hurl Orb, the Blowback Orb, and the Radar Orb, I think I will sell. But I'll hang on to the Petrify Orb. Do we have any news on the Guard in that one state? You mean like the National Guard in Chicago? Or what? From Reuters. We're going in. Trump to send National Guard troops to Chicago. President Trump said on Tuesday he would deploy National Guard troops to fight crime in Chicago, an extraordinary effort to militarize the country's third largest city that was likely to trigger a legal battle with local officials. Extraordinary effort. Dog, it's actually insane the degree to which news agencies will fucking launder everything the Trump administration tries to do. They will do everything except call it illegal, unconstitutional, and, like, Hitlerite. Wow, extraordinary, controversial, bold. Dog, you are Hitler. You are der Stürmer. You know? Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson condemned the action, obviously. Walmart media portrays that we're in a disaster with crime. Yeah, it's almost like there's a set of perverse incentives that are introduced when you have media that's run on a for-profit basis. So they always have the incentive to display the most sensationalized news possible, which means the truth instantly goes out the window the moment you can get people scared enough to get their attention, which means that you're constantly going to sell the narrative that crime is rampant and people need to be afraid of a scary black person ever, like, shooting them. Do banks ever get robbed? No! Not really. And if they do, they're insured. Even when banks get robbed, they don't get robbed. You know what happens? You know what you do? Like, if a bank... If a bank gets robbed, right? If a person in like the classic cliche person in a ski mask or a like balaclava walks into the bank with a gun and they're like, "All right, we're here to rob this bank." You know what happens? Everybody just cooperates. Everybody please get down on the ground. Don't look at us. Tellers, please, direct money to this account or put cash in these bags here. You know what everybody does? You know what happens? People cooperate. They get on the ground. The tellers put the money in the bag. The bank robbers leave. They contact the authorities afterwards, and the bank's money is insured. The banks don't lose any money, and neither do you. If you are a patron of a bank that gets robbed, you lose nothing because the FDIC exists. You'd have to be one of the dumbest people ever to attempt to rob a bank. Yeah, why would you rob a bank when you could just, like, fuck the entire economy raw, which is completely legal, and you get infinitely more money from it? You know? legitimately, like, suboptimal strategy for making money. Now I will actually take... I'll take 50 money, so I have exactly 1,000 on my person, and I'll purchase another friend area. Give me the Decrepit Lab. Alright. Yay! So I can go to that area now. Laugh at people who think reality runs off morals. Yeah. Let me go back to this Reuters article and finish like skimming through it at the very least. Hours earlier, a federal judge blocked Trump's administration from using the military to fight crime in California, ruling that does not apply to other states. Oh yeah, that reminds me of the other court ruling. Apparently, the courts ruled that it is illegal and unconstitutional for Trump's administration for Trump to unilaterally put tariffs on other countries. But here's the fucking kicker. They said they're not going to enforce it. Yeah, it's illegal for you to unilaterally put tariffs on these other countries, but we're not going to stop you. You can just keep doing it. This country is dead, bro. This country is dead, and the liberals and fascists held hands while killing it. Oh my god, dude. Actually unhinged. You're gonna say, so yeah, what are you gonna do about it? No, that's the thing. That's what I'm, like, saying. It didn't even get to the point where the administration's like, yeah, well, what are you gonna, what are you gonna do about it? Because the court preempted that by saying, we're not gonna do anything about it. They provided the answer before the administration could even ask the rhetorical question. Spiro. I will name you Jack. Get it? Because he's Jack Sparrow. Jack Spiro? Whatever. Lazy nickname, but I'm feeling lazy right now. In-game. You're creating a guild at this point? Funny you should say that. Because there is literally a... you are literally part of an explorer's guild in the next Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game. Like the Explorers games. There's nothing more in this article. There's literally, like, nothing interesting in that article. It's just like, oh yeah, they're calling in the troops, and, like, the president says they have the right to do that, which they do. That's the fucking problem. And then, like, Democrats offer a limp dick response. The press, like, sane washes and normalizes a fucking military crackdown on cities that are ruled by the opposition party. Oy, oy, oy. A person I would be surprised, but come on, dude, it's not. Like, come on, dude, it's not the systems that are bad, it's just evil people. Yeah, it's crazy that even at this late date, they're, like, there are liberals who act like Trump is the only thing wrong. And at this point, the news outlets have basically given up on any form of justification, and they're just sort of providing information and misinformation as though it's like, I don't know, a queer, interesting little factoid, you know? like I kind of remember some of the political discourse from the Bush era. Yeah, like I'll get to that, you know, no spoilers for the analysis, but media today is more deferential to Donald Trump than media in the 2000s was to George Bush, which is fucking insane. We'll name you Frank. Francis, actually. Imagine if George Bush had this privilege. Yeah, I could actually, I think. Things would have been, you know, a little bit worse than they were, but like, you know, the thing that makes it insane is that George Bush didn't get all that much meaningful opposition anyway. He's just gonna... Alright. What mission objectives do I... Okay, 3, and then... But yeah, the reason that the news media is this deferential is because, like, their editorial board, you know, the board of directors, whatever, and obviously their owners are all part of that owning class. They're all part of the class that takes pleasure in economically raping this country to death. So obviously they're going to be complicit in whatever the government is doing to achieve that same end because they benefit from it. You know, and because of that, it is in their interest, and they frame the news and select the news to this effect to deactivate people as much as possible, to, you know, to muddy the waters, to ensure that above all else you are not getting mad, or that you are less mad than an honest portrayal of the news would otherwise indicate at you know, at the government, at the president, at whatever, you know. And again, earlier when I said some liberals, I really do only mean some liberals, because the average liberal in America wants Donald Trump's head on a pike. Which is commendable, if only because, like, they're mad about it. And they're willing to get mad over politics that they care about. But, you know, again, to your point, the job of the news is to make sure that nobody cares enough about politics to get mad. So, you know, deferential, boring, fucking dishonest slop. I'm going to continue exploring. Yeah, that's kind of part and parcel of the end of history narrative. It's like, oh, riots and protests are things that happened in the past. You know, political movements are things that happened in the past, you know? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not just a descriptive of how they see the past. It's a prescriptive for what they want to happen in the future. They want politics to be dead, and they are willing to kill it. Six four, I think. Yeah, okay. Ow. Get him out of here. Oh, I didn't get Magnemite on my team. That's unfortunate. Get out of here, Tyrogue. Hey, oh wow, dude, Zigzagoon is leveling up so fucking fast. How many experience points? 66? How is he leveling up so fast? I don't get it. No, I will keep exploring. He has that dog in him? Apparently. They got that dog in him. Watch, they're gonna level up probably after defeating like 1 or 2 of these Pokemon too. Watch this. Boom. Level up. He's built different, I guess. Damn. How much now? 73. Okay. Dude, okay, you know what? Actually, this just made me think. There are some Pokemon that have an ability that really neuter their ability to, like, explore and stuff. Zigzagoon, I think, is one of them. Where, since you can have multiple abilities at a time in this game, I think he has the ability Runaway. Yeah, dude, he is catching up to me, legit. I think Zigzagoon actually has the ability Runaway. And what Runaway does in this game, in the normal Pokemon game, Runaway can be quite useful, but Runaway as an ability in this game is super, it's like the opposite of useful. It's like detrimental. Because what it does is that once you hit half health, your teammate becomes terrified and just starts running away and they can't attack. And I know that the purpose of this is like, oh, right, they run away from danger, but no, that actually gets them killed quicker. Because if your Pokemon is part of the team unit, it's much easier to maneuver around that and to try to protect them until their health, like, recovers, right? But if they just start fucking, like... Yeah, it's the pussy mechanic. That they just start running away with the tail between their legs. It makes them just easy pickings for whatever Pokemon they run into. So I think maybe that's why Zigzagoon particularly is leveling up so quickly. I'm not learning Bide. Especially how useless Mudkip is at the best of times. I'm not introducing an even more useless move into that moveset. Okay. Do some of that. There's a reason why when you're in a deadly situation, you stay calm. Yeah, it's a, like, legitimate, like, response to being under pressure, is that you have to, like... The adrenaline kicks in, and sometimes that actually stabilizes you, enables you to think rationally, or like, calmly in the moment, even if you're not 100% rational. You know, cooler heads do, in fact, prevail. Even if you're, like, acting passionately, you know. You get it. 8th floor. Okay, that's the problem. See, like, just there, he took 10 damage. Jack only has 27 health, and from one non-attack attack, right? That was the regular attack. It does about half as much as the move Tackle, which is one of the weakest moves in this game. He took 10 damage, which is more than a third of his life. And because I was there, Beldum both had another target to worry about, and was, like, defeated that much quicker. If it were just Spearow and Beldum, done. I heard in one of the games you can rob a shop owner. Is that true? Yes, in fact, I actually, while playing off stream, I did that a few times and figured out, like, a semi-reliable way to do it, right? The first thing you have to do is make sure that you have a couple Reviver Seeds in your inventory. Because even under, like, ideal circumstances, the shopkeep is probably going to be able to get 1 or maybe 2 attacks off, which means somebody might faint and you know, would need to bring them back. Then what you also need to have is what's called a pure seed. A pure seed, if you eat it, will warp you instantly to the staircase. And when you go to the next floor, all of a sudden you're immune to legal consequences, I guess, for theft. So you pick up all the items, you step outside of the shop, or better yet, you just eat the pure seed that warps you straight to the staircase, take the stairs, maybe somebody faints in the process and gets brought back by a reviver seed, and boom, you have gotten away with it, TM. I've done that like 2 or 3 times in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, off stream. Just since like last time. I think I got 200 money for that. That's pretty cool. Yay, Reviver Seed. Graveler Rock. Imagine getting robbed by a 10-year-old. Well, I'm 25, so... They don't specify... Here's the thing. They don't specify what age your character is in this game. It's kind of assumed that you're kids because this game is for kids. But, like, your character was a human explorer who gets turned into a Pokemon. The age of the Pokemon is kept ambiguous, which I kind of appreciate for games like this. Makes it palatable for, like, audiences of various ages, because it makes it that much easier for the character to be like a self-insert. But also, yes, imagine getting robbed by a 10-year-old. I will save the game. In fact, I think I'm even going to end stream right there. Watch the live stream beat up the bullies to submission. Oh, yeah. Team Meanies. Honestly, I feel like the way I described them was worse than that at the in-game beating, to be honest. Like, how are you gonna call yourself Team Meanies and you're like, we're out for world domination? It's like, really? Let's raid Cody Schwab, I think. Yeah. Actually, no, I don't think I even want to raid anybody today. How painful are Pokemon moves when they hit people? I mean, it depends on how forcefully the Pokemon is applying it. Like, you don't necessarily do it full force every time. It's like saying, how painful is it to get punched? It depends on the force of the punch, right? Like, it could hurt a little bit, or it could break your fucking jaw. You know? How painful is a Thunderbolt? I don't know. It could be like getting static shocked a little bit, or you could fucking die from 10,000 volts of electricity. It depends. But I imagine they hurt, particularly because the anime makes a gag of it with Brock every time he freaks out when there's a woman next to him. Some people, when you punch, you die because they hit that hard. Yeah, it's possible for a good punch to kill somebody. Maybe not the punch itself, but like, yeah, you can incur some serious damage from getting punched in the wrong place. Or if you get punched in a way that catches you off balance and then you fall over, being destabilized and unable to stop yourself from falling, that can kill you. Anyways. Yeah, I'll see you guys. I'm just gonna log off. I'll see you guys next time. Don't get punched and don't punch other people.